What you looking for? Welcome. Yes, okay. Welcome to today's broadcast. Thanks for joining in. I'm making the argument today that the Trump administration's failure to provide a national plan for testing for domestic production of much needed elements of a pandemic response is not only killing tens of thousands of Americans and potentially millions of Americans, is also killing their economy. Hi Brian, nice to see you. Hello, how are you going? If you want to call in, let me know. Pumpkin cookie. I've got some pumpkins happening around me, but we love them. They're allowed to live. Gosh damn it, these are testing times, but they're also times for family bonding. So I'll also, now that I know Brian's going to be joining me, I'll send him a link so he can dial in. We could talk a little bit about Dr. Fauci's testimony before the House and how he, squashed the idea that there's any data whatsoever that says hydroxychloroquine is effective. People who cite a study from Henry Ford, that study is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial, and basically hydroxychloroquine was given to people who were also receiving corticosteroids, and corticosteroids have been used in randomized placebo-controlled trials and been shown to have some efficacy. So there was no possible separation of hydroxychloroquine and its effects from that study. Just so that everybody knows what randomized means and what placebo and what controlled means. If you're controlling a trial, and so you randomly allocate people to a group, then you're not letting any unconscious bias creep into your study so that you maybe put the less sick people into one arm of the experiment and then go, look, all those people have recovered. Because humans have unconscious biases, and those biases can seep through into their work, creating self-fulfilling prophecies. So scientists who understand this, understand that a key element of experimental design is controlling to mitigate against that very human tendency. Hang on. I did the wrong thing. I've got an old broadcast of yours up on the screen, but I think I've sent you the link, Brian. So when you want to join in, you can. Oh, darling. Saying I don't know what I'm talking about is setting me up in contrast to whom? Somebody who doesn't have a postgraduate qualification in a science field? Compared to you have a postgraduate qualification in a science field? I do, and I have some understanding of the historical developments that have given rise to ethical considerations for people who design studies. Yay, the gang's all here. Paul, Cosmic Rose, nice. Someone's asking if it's true what I said on my profile. What did I say on my profile? I believe I said that I'm in favor of making science easy to understand and accessible so that anyone can choose to be a science promoter rather than a science denialist, because science denialism is one of the key problems of our era. Let's have a go. Let's talk to Brian. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I
Okay,
need to
good.
make you equal. There we go.
Alrighty. I just ended my broadcast, actually.
Timing.
Yeah, really.
So I only saw clips of Fauci's broadcast today, Brian, but I did hear that people were saying he was pulling his punches. He isn't as savage as he needs to be to condemn the administration's handling of the pandemic response. And that's kind of just a fixture of people who are used to serving in administrations that at least pay lip service to the idea of serving the public, who have some kind of commitment. The Trump administration, it would appear, has zero commitment to providing a service for the country that they are ostensibly leading.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I was sleeping today because I worked the last couple nights, so I haven't had a chance to go back and watch any of that.
Thank you for your service. Frontline healthcare professional.
But yeah, I think that he is very apolitical to the point where he doesn't want to ruffle feathers too much. Because part of that is the fact that he probably knows that Trump would just can him and replace him, even though he's probably the most credentialed person to hold that position probably in the country at this point, because of his resume. I mean, he worked the front line with HIV, with Ebola, with numerous diseases in the past that he's been around.
I'm going to make a bold claim here. I'm going to suggest, what if Americans have an over-reliance on CVs? Because I agree that Dr. Fauci is incredibly high-credentialed and successful, and that he perhaps is the only person whom America would pay attention to in this pandemic situation. But I also want to highlight that as late as February 29th, he was saying that Americans didn't need to adjust their lifestyles, that there was very low risk that the pandemic would affect the United States. He seems to have, and I understand perfectly that science adapts and rolls, and that not everybody understood the degree of the risk. But when I furrow my brow at Fauci, it does feel irritating to me, not you, Brian, but just in a broad sense, that people are still saying Fauci is our hero, the same way we used to have candles with Mueller's face on it, that we were looking to saviors and messiahs who, by virtue of their credentials, would act in an appropriate way to circumstances. And Mueller, it would seem, also did not respond with the requisite intensity to bad faith actors trying to harm Americans. So he did not approach the task. He dotted the I's and crossed the T's, but he didn't put the force of his personality behind publicly contradicting William Barr. He wrote a letter about it. He wrote a letter in very lawyerly language, very polysyllabic words that is not accessible to the public in a cognitive sense. And I think I'm going to end up feeling similarly about Fauci, the way I feel now, which is thanks for your expertise, and you're not doing enough, and it's kind of facilitating them getting away with what they're doing. I mean, Dr. Birx is a more extreme example of that, someone who has a commitment to science and a history of working to help Americans and working to defeat the AIDS crisis around the world, but who, out of deference to power or proximity and excitement from proximity to power, is saying things that do not sufficiently condemn the administration for their missteps, and it's more than accidental. It's more than inadvertent. Whoopsies, we forgot to have a national plan. They've been asked to have a national plan. The level of malfeasance involved, I think it's fair to say more people now would suggest that Deborah Birx was part of that. And I would also suggest that Fauci might be peripheral to that as well. That legitimization of an illegitimate government with an illegitimate approach. And that we're so careful to tread carefully to not arouse accusations of you're just being bipartisan, you're not being true to our system of deference paid to each opinion. And that's weakened the United States. That's my argument, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. I think that he should use his and Mueller. Sorry.
I'm not actually sure.
Mueller should have. Oh. Yeah, Mueller should have. He should have used his place to push further, like you said. And I think that Fauci should do the same thing. I think that he's just kind of sitting back, like you said, kind of in close proximity to power. I think he's intimidated in a way. I think that Mueller. Yeah, I always say his name wrong, but whatever it is, I think whatever it is. Yeah, well, I think he was kind of the same way in a sense, because he feels like he can just be replaced. And I think that Fauci feels the same way, that he can just be replaced. I think that he's kind of trying to skirt both sides to stay where he is in order to try and do the most good he thinks he can do. But I don't think it's coming across as effective enough for people. I don't think that I think that not having a national plan has definitely hurt us, because we look at the countries that did implement a national plan, and look how much better they're doing than we are. Look at Japan. Look at places in Europe, in the European Union, where the case numbers are dwindling still. Excuse me. Sorry.
Well, even in Sweden, where a lot of us on the left would disagree with the sort of let's see if herd immunity is a thing that we can achieve in a herd of humans. Let's treat humans like they're an agricultural herd, that we can achieve a non-vaccination related herd immunity. They're still doing so much better than the United States. They did at least have a national plan in which they gave strong directives to companies with the idea of, okay, we're not going to lock you down, but to stop us from locking you down in the future, you better comply. So there was a degree of implied strength there. They
still had a plan, and they still stuck by it. Where we basically just kind of, it's like we walked into the woods without a compass, metaphorically, and we're all still stuck in the woods. And you have people that are saying that No, lost you. Can't hear you at all. It says that you're muted on my screen when I see your name there.
Okay. Did you hear me now? Okay, good.
Yeah. And with the whole woods metaphor, then you still have people claiming that we're not even in the woods. We're in suburbia.
I guess Trump. Oh, sorry. Yes, there's still.
There's still the people that follow after what Trump is saying, that this whole thing is still a hoax. And that to me is just mind-boggling, with all of the data and all of the reports that we're seeing even on the news. Even Fox News is reporting onto it to a certain extent, saying, well, yeah, it's pretty bad now, and yada, yada, yada. And then they just kind of push it off. But they're at least saying that much about it.
It's made me realize something, listening to you, Brian, that pushing it off onto the states, saying, nope, I'm not going to have a federal plan to this federal crisis, that it allows Trump to get away with his broad net, where he'll say something or promise something and pursue something else. So it enables him to bifurcate his own response. He gets to say, oh yeah, I don't support masks, but maybe I do support wearing masks. Maybe it isn't a problem, but maybe it is. He gets to keep giving the media and pundits in the media employment to keep saying, new tone. No, not new tone, new tone. And he gets to have this very split, tangential approach and not be held accountable on any plan because he doesn't have one, because he threw it out to the states to say, squabble amongst yourselves. I'm going to take your federal tax dollars and do nothing, because then it's more difficult to hold me accountable for the thing that I have not done, because I didn't just not do anything. I said, it's not even my job to do anything. It's a state job.
And we're seeing how well that is turning out. I was reporting on the numbers today. Just in Florida, we're at 492,000 cases right now. Tomorrow we will hit 492,000 in Florida alone. Tomorrow we will hit 500,000.
Is Florida outpacing Europe, like the entirety of Europe, in terms of active cases?
I know we're doing an average between 7 to 11,000 a day right now. So I believe that we have more cases per day in Florida than the entirety of the European Union. Yes,
I've heard that. So yes, I think I'm going to call Fauci a little bit complicit, that he's the epitome of that normalcy bias, that we want things to be well, we want things to be normal and to have a normal functional government, but we don't. And really we need Fauci to call it out, and Fauci to acknowledge that they haven't followed his advice, that he can pay lip service to what needs to be done, but the fact is they haven't followed it for months. They've put out some of the CDC advice and then encouraged opening against that advice. That Fauci if he was responsible about it, could say a national plan would have been a good thing. But at the same time, the Trump administration hasn't been improved by getting rid of any of the adults in the room. So you know what? I'll stay on the fence. I'll stay on the fence and say I'm suspicious that Fauci's behavior could count as potential complicity because he doesn't challenge them for their failures to adopt even a basic level plan, even a basic plan to ramp up testing at a national level, to provide national resources to states that need it. And they need it when there's hotspots, and it would prevent those hotspots from escalating. But Trump is master of dancing away from accountability because he so easily tricks the media into not holding him to account. Although having said that as well, I don't want to be one of these overly negative people that just piles in on the media all the time. There are some in the media that seek to hold Trump account. There are some great pieces in the Washington Post that I've seen that denounce him appropriately.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you seen the newest Lincoln Project ad called Wake Up?
Called what?
Wake Up.
Wake Up. No, let's find it. Okay.
It's a little bit longer of an ad, but it hits a lot of points that are very poignant because it's coming from the viewpoint of a bunch of Republicans.
Awesome. Okay.
And one Republican who's waking up from a 3.5-year coma.
Oh.
So there's some comedy involved in it too, but it's a very well done ad because it makes you think, wow, this is what people are really thinking still at this point, and that's crazy.
Yes. All right, I'm scrolling through. I wish there was some way I could access videos from the Lincoln Project to make it faster. But I will have to scroll through their tweets.
Go to YouTube.
I'll go to YouTube.
Their
okay.
page. It's right. It should be the last thing they posted, unless they posted something since then.
Okay, of course, they would have their own YouTube channel. I did not think of that. I just
they do.
Follow their Twitter feed. But that's smart, Brian. That's smart. They're such a critical voice, and I'm always talking about this project. Oops. Okay.
Yeah, whenever I've gone back to find a video that I wanted to show somebody, I always go back to YouTube and find it there because it's a lot easier to show somebody, like somebody at work or a friend or send it to somebody via text or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I saw it. Okay, we will vote Wake Up. Excellent. Okay, so now I just have to share it here. Share audio. Lincoln Project.
He's been up for 20 minutes. Just tell me he's okay.
Yep.
Where's my baby? Right now. Harry.
No hugging. No hugging,
We're
please.
not gonna hug nobody.
Hi, Mom.
Hey.
It's okay. Hi. I'm okay. It's okay. But the doctors won't tell me anything. Could someone please explain what's going on?
Okay, honey, you were in a very bad car accident and you bumped your head. And so about 3.5 years have gone by.
3.5 years?
Yeah.
You were in a coma. And now it's 2020.
Wow. Wow. Did I miss anything interesting? What?
You guys go.
Well, sweetheart, do you remember that our president is Donald Trump?
Of course. We finally got a Republican back.
Strong leader, boy. He's a strong leader.
Supporting families.
Well, of course, he's got a bunch of his own family working in the White House right now.
Bless their hearts.
And
Too.
as he promised, he's keeping the Mexicans out.
So he actually built his wall.
Well,
Hey, how'd he get Mexico to pay for it?
I don't think I remember him saying that.
And don't mention the kids in the cages.
I'm not gonna.
Kids?
Yeah, I got to admit that didn't turn out the way he said it would.
if I remember right, his wife was an immigrant.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't she pretty?
Oh, goodness.
I just love all her
She's
dresses.
from one of those non-shithole countries. And she was so strong when she found out that her husband was paying off one of those
Porn stars.
Exactly.
a porn star.
Oh, I guess we did want an outsider Republican.
Yes, we did.
Did he lose the evangelicals?
Actually, they didn't really say very much. You know, he eventually took a picture in front of a church with a upside down Bible, and that helped.
It did.
And we have race riots.
Race riots.
No, more like peaceful, everybody riots.
Everybody good around. Yeah.
People in the street yelling for equal rights for Black people again. And you know what? I have to admit, I do agree they deserve it because the police keep accidentally killing Black people.
Oh, we can't support that. We're Republicans, not Klansmen.
That's right.
Kiddo. You know, they're fine people on both sides.
You believe that?
I'm trying to.
Trump was just making a point about fairness and there being two sides to every story, especially when one is so terrible.
That's right. Keep it balanced. Just like how he got himself impeached.
Whoa, impeached? For what?
For supposedly cahooting with the Russians.
Wow. The Republicans must have crushed him on that Russia stuff.
Oh no, my love. They are loyal, good people. Well, especially that Mitch McConnell.
But I thought we hated the Russians.
We do, except we like Putin. Apparently, he turned good.
I mean, let's be honest. Trump knew for a very long time that Putin and the Russians were paying off the Talibans to kill us.
Oh, the news networks must be just destroying him.
Oh boy, honey, we don't listen to them.
Ah.
We're the scientists.
Yeah, it's fake news.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Oh, wait a minute. Did you all become doctors? Why are you all wearing masks?
Well, Pumpkin, there is a virus killing people all over the world. Now, at first, Mr. Trump said it was just a hoax made up by the Democrats, but people kept getting sick. So then Trump asked the doctors to figure out a way how to inject disinfectant into everybody. But then finally, Trump took some medicine, although not the real kind, And now, over 150,000 Americans are dead. I mean, nothing could be done about it, right?
Excuse me.
How do you know if you have the virus?
No, you don't.
No.
No. I mean, we can't get tested. The president slowed that way down. But that was so that less people died from it.
That's good.
Wait, what?
Would you like a mask?
Oh, honey, look at him. Hey, don't you worry. The reason we elected him was so he could fix the economy. That's exactly what he did, right? He gave huge tax cuts to the rich folk who hire people. Oddly, they didn't hire people.
Millions of people are newly unemployed, including your father.
Oh, that's me, Mr. Lose Your Job. Lost my damn job.
Do you guys remember how nobody came to his party in Oklahoma?
No.
Or he's just talking about how he could drink water.
Well, he did it
Just
well.
It was
He
like
did do it good.
it was an assist.
You know what, Gary? We should go stay at Mar-a-Lago sometime. I bet we'd meet some
Oh.
big shots.
No, we can't afford that, honey.
Oh, yeah.
No, my favorite was that time when in Puerto Rico when it started raining.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
All
Cats and dogs.
So then Trump went down there and he threw them all free paper towels.
that's
Just
right,
chunking
that's
out, took
exactly
the
what
paper
paper
towels.
towels. And now
He
you
did.
can't even find a paper towel. So.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what we never did
What?
find out the meaning of Covfefe, though?
No, I think
No.
that's Kofifi. That's the
I
French
see.
version.
Right.
That would be nice,
I
wouldn't
love
it?
that ad because it's like a montage of everything that has happened in the last 3 years, put into a couple-minute conversation with somebody.
Yes. It does condense it, and that's often been the difficulties of contending with Trump or any fascist, is the fire hose of lies, so that you're always just trying to keep abreast and always trying to fact check with the latest. So I'm just going to address this troll's comment that all you can do is mock, no substance, solutions, or intelligence. Brian and I have been promoting mask wearing And in fact, I've been also promoting face shield wearing as well, because I've been aware for some time that the conjunctiva of the eyes are also a mucosal surface that can allow ingress of viral particles into your body, infecting you, giving you an infectious dose of a highly contagious virus known as COVID-19. So we have solutions. We have intelligence, and we've been very substantive in our criticisms. So I'd just like to say thank you for offering up that particular perspective, just to allow me to offer that comprehensive refutation of what you said. In the same way that the Lincoln Project took a lot of the most poignant criticisms of the Trump regime, which has been that they have kidnapped children from their parents and then detained those children in detention centers, in camps, in concentration camps, away from any adult advocates or caregivers, where they have been mistreated, deprived of soap, blankets, nappies, where small children have been put in the care of older children. That's one very significant thing that was referenced in that ad, as well as the fact that tens of thousands of Americans have become infected, that in turn derails the economy so that millions of Americans have lost their jobs. Is it 40 million Americans at this point, Brian, do we think? I know the number is increasing.
Yes, was the number that I had heard last.
Yes. So 40 million Americans losing their jobs, and an ongoing problem because the virus continues to spread. It is undiminished in its spread because Trump and his cronies and his loyal foot soldiers in the American public have continued to disseminate information that encourages public noncompliance with the few measures that can be adopted to prevent spread. So Trump loyalists are out there now, not just failing to wear masks themselves, but attacking public health officials who dare suggest that mask wearing be mandated, or that children be required to wear masks at schools when they're pushed back into schools, even though rates of infection are at over 12% in some areas. So yes, more than the entire population of Canada. That's large. And when I look at the Johns Hopkins charts where they have increasingly large red dots for infected areas, and America is covered in them, and Canada is largely black with a few city dots of infection.
Yeah.
We can get that on screen. We
Different.
can get up the Johns Hopkins. There's population differences. What I really would like is a mathematical collaborator, somebody who can help me with those calculations. So that we can say, okay, if this population is a quarter of the size of America's population, and then their death rate is this, what size population would they have to have, or how many times would we have to increase their population to get a similar number of dead people in that country, or similar number of infected people from the coronavirus?
I think the best way to look at that is deaths per million. There's a website that I follow that does give that information out. I'll send you a link to it when we're done here.
That is a good way of comparison on equivalent terms, but it also, I think, is quite poignant to hear how much bigger certain countries would need to be to expand in order to then have a comparable amount of their population. So it's a different way of comparing, but to go, oh, well, Japan would need to have a 30 times as big population in order for their death rate to become comparable to America's. Yes, so I can't say that with any accuracy right now. But you know what? If I also just spent some time on it, I could probably make those calculations myself. I'm going to put up the Johns Hopkins coronavirus map here. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. That line across Canada is so stark. Yep. Dang it. Well, anyway, that redness. Oops. Okay, where there's North America and there's Canada's population, and then there's just this density of infection in the United States. I hope it makes people.
5% of the cases in the world.
Yeah. A quarter of the world's not a quarter. Quarter of the world's cases, 1/4 of the world's deaths, but 4% of the world's population.
Yep.
So Cosmic Rose, I think other people are saying that Lincoln Project video was originally an hour long, but that they edited it down.
No, I didn't know. I didn't know that.
I think somebody, Cosmic Rose, listened to it on a Lincoln Project town hall, and the director spoke and said that it was originally an hour long, but they edited it down. So I guess they had a long form version and a short form version.
I might have to look for the long form version and watch that one.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk for too much longer. Trevor Noah has a 5-minute spot. If you and I want to have a break from talking again, we could always watch that as well, because he's good value. I think Trevor Noah has come into his moment as a comedian with a large public platform. He's adapted well to the constraints of broadcasting from home, and they've put in some more clever editing. And that's what people want to see, value for money. If you've got the editing staff and the production budget,
Yeah, Trevor Noah is great. I love him. I've watched some of his older stand-up too, and he's always been funny. And I think he does very well on his show.
Excellent. Yeah, I love him as well. I have a friend who adores him, and she's very removed from the climate change debate, but I think Trevor led her to it by having Greta Thunberg appear on his show. And so she's still not a big advocate for listening to climate science, but she's more prepared to admit that there is an issue, or that there are some people with legitimate concerns out there. And
it's a step in the right direction.
It is a step in the right direction. So, yes. What else going on? What were you talking about in your broadcast, Brian?
Mainly about the numbers, and the other thing was some of the different drugs that they are testing, other than just remdesivir, which is one of the big ones that we keep hearing about. They're still beating the dead horse of hydroxychloroquine in places. I have not seen that.
Brazilian doctors, I think half of Brazilian doctors said that they felt pressured to prescribe hydroxychloroquine. And I would imagine that's because Bolsonaro is so influenced by Trump, and you can just see the contagion of that particular scam.
Yeah,
and it's not about them follow the money. I think in that instance, it's follow the contrarianism, follow the political power that arises from telling people there's a conspiracy out there to deny you this life-saving drug, so you don't need to worry about coronavirus. You don't need to step far away from your original mindset of saying, okay, it's a hoax. Trump said so. I don't have to worry about it. It's a hoax. Okay, well, he said it's not a hoax now, but there's this drug. It's awesome. Typical Trump. He's such a hero. Only Trump will tell us the truth. The doctors and the scientists are trying to say that hydroxychloroquine is not useful and not safe for treating coronavirus. The thing that the contrarian demagogues like to say is it's safe. We use it for lupus. We use it for malaria. It's been used for decades. It has, but it can bring on or exacerbate heart conditions and heart problems. And COVID-19 is known for instigating or bringing about exacerbating heart conditions. Even in people who've had a relatively mild case of COVID-19, they're showing up later with disrupted heart functioning. And COVID-19 antibodies. So even if people didn't know they've got the disease, if you've got COVID-19 antibodies, statistically speaking, you are more likely now to have a problem, whether it be a mild problem.
The other thing that's not spoken about a lot too with the hydroxychloroquine is the fact that the treatment for it for lupus is a very low dose. It's not the high doses that they're prescribing for COVID patients. It's a fraction of what they prescribe for COVID patients. So the fact that they're hoarding it all for COVID patients, that the government bought so many, is harming people that need it for their lupus, need it for their rheumatoid arthritis, because it treats that as well. And the other thing the one thing I spoke of about remdesivir, and this wasn't something that I had even looked into too much before until recently, is the fact that it's not even an FDA approved drug yet. It's still in very early clinical research. It was still before we started trying to use it in people, it had only been used in animal specimens or animal models against SARS, MERS, and Ebola. It was shown to be effective against those. The only thing that they did before they started doing human trials was they put live human cells in a petri dish, basically infused them with remdesivir, and found out that it blocked the COVID from infecting those cells. So that's
the same as
where
hydroxychloroquine, which also has in vitro efficacy.
yeah. And in that type of situation, it might work, but we can't break ourselves down into a bunch of cells, put us in petri dishes, and then put us back together later.
Correct. We're much more multifactorial. And my husband says that remdesivir maybe cuts 3 or 4 days off somebody's hospital stay if they're already
that's
committed to
about
hospital.
all we're seeing right now for people that are getting over this. But there are people that are getting this bad that even with remdesivir, convalescent plasma, and some people were even actually giving the Acterma, which is the tocilizumab, which is another RA drug, that we're giving all 3 of those to some of these patients, and they're still not showing any signs of improvement.
Yeah. It's a bugger of a disease, Brian.
It is. It really is.
And it's a bugger that it's going to give people lasting comorbidities as well, potentially. Well, it is. People are reporting very long-term effects once they've ostensibly recovered from COVID-19. There's support groups springing up around the United States for people with incredible fatigue just from taking a shower. Those kind of conditions preclude working. So it might keep down the unemployment rate to a degree, shave a percentage off it, because you'll have people that don't even register as unemployed because they'll register as needing disability benefits because they can't work. They're not people who couldn't find a job. They're people who cannot work.
They can't physically work because they're not physically able to do it.
Yeah. 40 million people losing their jobs is significant. And like the Republicans in that Lincoln Project ad who were saying, no, he's doing great for the economy. He clings to that, and it's a fabricated reality that can't really hold up indefinitely, and certainly doesn't hold up well to people who don't have a gamified perception of reality. So I think Republicans who belong to that team have a very conditioned, gamified approach to facts and events. Independent voters, the people who I think the Lincoln Project might be most efficacious with their campaigns, people who lean Republican, who lean towards a worldview that says, oh, I value politicians who talk about independence, who talk about being not reliant on the state, who talk about minimizing government involvement in anything because government involvement is inherently bad. They feel that way, but at least their beliefs have the potential to let in a skerrick of light through an intellectual window of going, wait a minute, my views are not so cemented on that I can't acknowledge the reality here that a disease Trump said was a hoax is destroying this country. A disease that Trump said was a hoax is sabotaging the economy, even in states where Trump said, open, that'll fix all the problems. The only harm caused to the economy is those anxious little weaklings, the Democrats, saying lock down. We'll reopen it up and we'll show you we can be in charge of the economy and revitalize it. I, Trump, am the master of sprinkling revitalized dust on things. He's not. That's not how it works. And independent voters are almost voters that are prepared to hold the president accountable. They're Republican voters with a degree of capacity to hold a president accountable. Democrats are already prepared to hold that president accountable because they knew from the beginning that he was no damn good, and that they were more prepared to look at the evidence about what a failure he was as a businessman, what a failure he was as a husband and a father and a person of character. Fail. So I almost discount Democrats not from any considerations. They need to be turned out, and we need to have a Black woman on the ticket in order to motivate those people who are already going to be persecuted, who are already going to suffer from Republicans restricting their number of available polling places, who might have to wait in line for 12 hours, although we still have to not accept that and try and change it where possible. But all of the pressures that can be brought to bear on Black Democratic voters casting their ballots. We need them to have that extra motivation that they had under Obama of seeing a person who relates more viscerally to their problems and their priorities. They're very real problems, not, oh, we want the government to do everything for us. No, we want some of that disadvantage that's been perpetrated against Black Americans over time. They want some of that to be defrayed by, yes, big government. Black Americans are okay with big government because big government has been the only organization to stand up for them over and over again, to pass the Civil Rights Act, to make various forms of discrimination illegal, to do some things that have reduced the amount of economic disenfranchisement. Oh, that's a tricky one. Disenfranchisement against America's Black population.
And one thing, like in that Lincoln Project ad, the one thing that kind of struck me is the person that I'm assuming to be the grandmother, when she was talking about the fact that, oh, they're writing again because they want equal rights again. Like she's saying, we've already done this. It's already done and over with.
It's settled. Nobody's racist anymore.
Yeah, that's what she's saying. Oh, we did this years ago. Why are they doing this again? That's the vibe that I got from the way she came across.
I'm sure it's the vibe for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Dismissing
what's going on and what's been happening for decades now.
Yes. Paul's noting that in the hearings yesterday, all the Republicans want the economy open wide up. And it's quite funny because polls show that that's not exactly popular, even amongst independent, Republican-leaning independents. So it's so disconcerting to say, are Republicans following that fascist procedure of not trying to expand the base, not trying to push ahead with popular policies and move away from unpopular policies? Are they just trying to ramp up the crazy from their most intense supporters, from the most fervent Republican base? You know, everybody always has to win a share of the independents. If you're a Democratic presidential candidate, you need the Democrats and the Democratic-leaning independents. You need both.
Yeah.
Republicans are alienating the Republican-leaning independents, and they don't seem to have any contrition or second thoughts about that, or a little bit of second thoughts about that. But the degree to which they are pushing open up states, even when more and more independent voters are going, hang on, that doesn't seem entirely wise. That seems to be creating problems for businesses that open up and then have to shut down, not because of mandates, but because of community sentiment saying we don't want to go there and get sick. We don't want to go there unless there are provisions made to prevent this virus transmitting in our communities. It sounds like fascism, where you go, I don't actually need a legitimate election anymore. I don't actually need to win a majority of voters. I just need the voters that I have to be really noisy and really super duper devoted and really adamantly opposed to the other side and go, they are economy ruiners. They're terrible. Let's shoot them. So that you can say, look, I'm just giving the people what they want. See how noisy my followers are. See how they turn up with guns at state courthouses. They are that passionate about reopening up America. So I have to do it for them. For them. That makes me feel like Republicans are on board with trying to sabotage the election. And I don't like that. Don't like it.
Yeah, and they try in different ways every year to do, or every election cycle, to do something different. Whether it's gerrymandering their districts to make sure that they can stay in power, or whether it's closing down voting centers or polling places, whether it's during the midterms, the fact that all these voting machines in these different low-income counties or areas, they said, oh, well, we don't have any power cords to hook the machines up.
I remember in Georgia, they didn't have the extension cords for...
Yeah, they didn't have extension cords. I mean, that's stuff that is just that's not poor planning. That's just sabotage.
It is pretty overt sabotage.
Yeah, because okay, the machine has to be plugged in. It has to have power. You're going to have an X amount of extension cords because not every one of these machines can be put by a wall outlet. there are only so many wall outlets in a building. And
It's
they're spaced
sabotage
so
that
far
they think
apart.
enough of an element of plausible deniability that they can at least tell their followers, we're not doing anything wrong. And you already have to have people who are prepared to overlook wrongdoing, to say that, yep, those people will at least say, yeah, no, they're fine.
Yeah.
Forgetting extension cords, it's a mistake anybody could make. Other people are going to go, no, that is flat out sabotage, for you not to think ahead for that, and for that to be part of a pattern of disenfranchisement of Black Americans and their right to vote, and vote in a timely fashion without having to give up a whole day's employment or a whole day's worth of childcare.
You didn't see issues like that in places like red Texas or red areas of the country. This is happening typically in your poor Democratic areas where there are high turnouts of Democratic voters, and it's apparent sabotage, and it was back then, and they will still try and do something like that or similar, or some other new scheme that they come up with to
like defunding the post office and allowing a Trump-appointed Trump donor to ruin the post office and purposefully ask post office staff to delay delivering the mail to create huge pileups, so that people become more distrustful of the postal service, and Trump can say, see, it's no good.
The U.S. Postal Service has been the only government-run agency that has turned a profit for since its inception almost. And what Trump has done, he's ruined it purposefully by putting this guy in charge, because it's not something that was a burden on the taxpayer. It paid for itself. It always has.
Yep.
That's why they've increased the cost of stamps over the years.
It said the post office had to have enough money to pay for retirement funds for its employees in the future, so that there was some provision that said they had to have this extra funding on hand, which meant that the post office became poor by mandate, by virtue of Republican push legislation.
Yeah, and that's in and of itself sabotage as well.
Absolutely. So Republicans often sabotage public institutions because they want to say that all publicly funded institutions are bad, and that we should just have a sort of feudalism where there's wealthy landlords and then just other people without power who are just serfs, so that there's no public education or public infrastructure. You can just travel on toll roads where you pay rich people for everything, and you're grateful to rich people for everything, otherwise you'd have nothing. To absolutely undermine
when you look at other things that have been deregulated over the years, like when California deregulated the electricity grid, all of a sudden they had rolling brownouts, and they still do. They still have power outages all the time out in California in different areas for different reasons, and it's because they privatized the power grid versus it being a public service like it is in most other states. I can't tell you the last time, other than a storm, my power went out for no reason, other than somebody down the street hit a power pole and snapped the lines or something.
Yes. I was just looking at the Republican Voters Against Trump website because to me those are important voices to help humanize Republican voters to us, former Republican voters, who are now adamant that they would rather vote for a tuna fish sandwich over Trump. I like periodically sharing their voices because to me, human stories help win people over as well. Not just us denouncing Trump, which is a circle jerk of us recognizing the truth in our own democratically minded circles, and keeps us sane. It's still an important public service and can extend understanding of science or the forces that we need to steel our resolve to be vocally opposed against. That we need to go, yes, this much is true. They are trying to brainwash us that Trump is great, but we are not succumbing to fascism, and we are not succumbing to that reality. We still gather in our circles, and we don't have to whisper it because the First Amendment right still mostly holds at the moment. And we tell ourselves, and we tell any random listeners, this is truth. they are spreading lies, but we can hold on to truth. And that's a strength of American democracy still, that there's such a vibrant culture of truth telling. It's hard to crowd it out. But crowding it out is one way that they are trying to drown out the truth. That Russians and Republicans and what are they called? ALEC, the Council, America's Legislative. I'll have to look up what ALEC stands for. The people who push really terrible legislation. Okay, it stands for American Legislative Exchange Council, a non-profit organization of conservative state legislators and private sector representatives who draft and share model state-level legislation for distribution amongst state governments in the United States. So those people are really bad. Their motto is limited government, free markets, and federalism, which basically means limited government means no stuff for Black people. That is their driving motivation. And also keep the lower classes in financial servitude. Don't give them rights. Don't give them access to suing people. Appoint conservative governments so that they don't have any recourse to complain that they're oppressed. And make sure that there are conservative judges appointed to the Supreme Court so that the Supreme Court can make rulings like Citizens United that says wealthy people can continue to throw money at the political system and so cement the power of the wealthy to buy political ads, to influence people's thinking and cement power for themselves. Yes, that was just my ALEC rant. I only learned about them recently, but I was disconcerted to think there were so many organizations that are actively devoted to oppressing Americans. It's kind of sad. And sad for Australians as well, because our government is taking the lead from yours. We have a mini Trump. He's incredibly obsequious to Trump. He appears in photos. If you've ever seen Scott Morrison, which you probably haven't because he's not a world leader that deserves that much attention. We're a tiny little country relative to the United States, population of what, about 25 million.
The size of Florida.
Yeah, we are a little bit the Florida of down under. Some sane people, some retired Jewish people, and some not retired Jewish people, and some crocodiles. Less guns.
I've seen Scott Morrison because I was following the fires down there last summer.
Mm-hmm.
So
somebody put together a video montage of Scott Morrison just smiling like his face could not stop smiling in Trump's company, and their faces are always quite close together, like they're just always clasping hands or patting each other on the shoulder. They are very similarly minded. Scott Morrison is an evangelical Christian who gets to use and squeeze that community for just a loyalty that he doesn't deserve. He left our country and went to Hawaii in the middle of the extreme bushfires, having downplayed it, having failed to prepare appropriately for what all of the experts were saying was going to be an incredible fire season, that the increased temperatures as a product of climate change were going to mean that more of Australia burnt, and we had to have resources ready to take care of that problem. He said, no, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be bigger. And he left the country and he went on holiday to Hawaii. And then people forgave him for that. When COVID came and Australia was doing well, we're quite good at following bureaucracy. We don't have as much of a Florida-style culture of saying, masks restrict my freedom to show my smiling face to the world. There's less of that. People just are more likely to do what they're told in Australia. But the internet is spreading that contamination and that fringe conviction that Bill Gates is trying to microchip us through vaccines. That is spreading now in Australia as well. We've had some demonstrations with big placards. Bill Gates is created the virus so he can microchip people. Yeah, but Australian idiocy has similar motivations probably to American idiocy. It partly stems from a desire to feel superior on the basis of no actual substantiated circumstances. You don't deserve to feel superior, people, just because you read some conspiracies on the internet. about Bill Gates. No, you're not better than Bill Gates. Oh my God, they love feeling superior to Bill Gates. They're like, all my life, I've been taught to go, Bill Gates, you've achieved so much. But now I get to say, Bill Gates, your achievements are dirt to me and I'm better than you. You invented the coronavirus and you invented microchipping. Well, those achievements are nothing. Yeah. South Carolina, Supreme Court decision saying businesses are people as well. Yes. Giving corporations.
Yeah. Giving corporations the same autonomy.
Protections of the First Amendment.
People. Yeah. It's ridiculous. It was totally ridiculous when they did that.
Paul's telling me that face palming can cause migraine headaches, so I should not do it. All right, Paul, thank you. I will look out for myself there. I got to go play with my children, but it was lovely talking to you, Paul. And Brian, thanks for appearing on the show.
No problem.
The show. And
thanks for having me, as always.
What sounds anti-Semitic? Someone saying that we have some retired Jewish people in Australia. We do. I am a Jewish person, not currently in Australia and not retired per se, if you would call being a fairly crappy housewife retired. I make good food. I make nice hamburgers and pasta. I can make pizza from scratch. I make good muffins, banana bread, fruit salad. I'm not the best housewife, but I do okay. So yes, I will not concede that I am anti-Semitic. I am fairly strongly anti-Israeli politics in terms of the politics of land acquisition and sabotage of two-state solutions. I'm in favor of letting Palestinians have some land to use in a two-state solution and not bulldozing homes and acquiring areas for settlements and not creating a two-tiered or even three-tiered voting system where if you are not of Jewish faith, then you have a lower standing in a hierarchy of an ethno-nationalist state. Paul says, thank you for indulging our thirst for important and accurate information. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Dan. Thank you, everybody else.
Everybody listen to, if you're not hooked up to Brian, let me type in what your Twitter handle is so they can follow you on Periscope if they don't already.
Oh, thanks.
Just BC
Nurse. Yep.
All right, so that is, Brian does his own Periscopes and he is an ICU nurse, so he does scopes with frontline information from his background as being a health professional who is currently working in the field. So on the ground information as well as trained, tertiary educated information.
Yep, thank you. I appreciate that.
No worries. Take care, everybody. Take care of yourselves, your communities. Look out for each other and speak out against people who abuse your trust, against people who take your federal tax dollars and don't give you a federal testing plan or a federal mask production plan in exchange for your federal taxes, and don't give you even a stimulatory plan that helps a broad enough number of people. The benefits are too heavily concentrated for Trump cronies. It's not okay. Keep saying it. You're all deputized to be speaker outerers. Thank you. Yes, you too, M-Gage. Stay good. Paul loves us both, Brian. It's nice.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.